It's a party. Okay.
Well, that was pleasant. Nice of him to stop by, don't you think?
We've got to do something. He's serious this time. I think he knows about the exams.
He's right.
You're right. We got to do something.
Absolutely.
You know what we got to do? Toga party.
We're on double secret probation, whatever that is. We can't afford to have a toga party.
You guys up for a toga party?
Toga! Toga!
Yeah, I think they like the idea, Hoove.
Oh, Otter, please don't do this.
I got news for you, pal. They're gonna nail us no matter what we do.
So we might as well have a good time.
Toga, 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 toga,
Wow.
All right.
That was different. Looks vaguely familiar.
Yep. And folks who are watching the replay, if you're going, what the hell are you talking about? You just went into the show. We did a little clip from Animal House with the Toga Party announcement. It'll be available when we re-upload to locals, etc. Hopefully it stays. Never know what the YouTube gods are going to do.
Hunley's rolling the dice tonight.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I got dressed up, wanted to go to a party, and I don't know what else to do, man.
Oh, I just noticed that you're wearing a toga. That's bizarre. I didn't notice that before.
Yeah, well, you know, keeping it light. Got the Mardi Gras too with freaking Snoopy. So
Wow!
kicking
Wow!
ass.
Fat Tuesday. Here we go. Well, finally, I have to hand it to the city of New Orleans for finally changing the name of Fat Tuesday to Comorbidity Tuesday, which I think is more appropriate.
Oh my! Oh my!
Anyway, that scene where you well, I don't know if you're going to see it, but the scene there of Boone and Otter, played by Tim Matheson and Peter Riegert, was originally supposed to be Bill Murray and Chevy Chase.
Okay, and I was wondering why Dan Aykroyd wasn't involved with the movie. I never really thought about it, but I was like, you know, he and Belushi were so tightly together. Saturday Night Live.
No, this had nothing to do with the movie. This was a studio. This
Okay.
I mean, this had nothing to do with anything that. Plus, the director Landis wanted certain people and didn't want these other friends of friends doing a movie. You know, I think it was the second movie for John Landis at the time, but.
Yeah, he did Kentucky Fried Chicken, I think, as his first, right?
Yeah, and then Ivan Reitman, don't forget, he wanted to direct this, but he ended up being the producer with Maddie on the picture in 1978. And most of it, like I said, comes from, it was originally this Canadian Charles Manson family high school story that Reitman had brought down from Canada, a comedy, of course, set in high school with the Charles Manson family in high school. And
nice.
Maddie said, rightfully so, they'll kill us if we ever do this, and changed it to college. And then Ramis and Chris Miller and Doug Kenny provided the material. Chris Miller obviously having the bulk of it in terms, because Doug Kenny had gone to school in the Midwest, and Ramis didn't really have the fraternity background that Chris Miller had.
One last question, Animal House wise. Is it true that the movie ended on November 21st, 1963, literally before the assassination and the world changed? For some reason that popped in my head that was the date that they were doing the party and everything else, and the movie ended.
I don't remember that. Is that at the end of the movie or something you're saying?
Yeah. That, like,
does it say that, or
I swear I've read that before, so I'll have to look it up. But it kind of ties it together with a lot of other stuff we're doing. If that's
nobody would allow them to shoot except a guy, a college president up in Eugene, Oregon, and he said yes, because he had passed as a college president on the shooting of a movie. He read the script of a previous movie and said no way, and he said, I'm never going to let this shoot here. And that movie was The Graduate. And he said after that, I don't know anything about scripts. So he didn't even read the Animal House script. And he just said yes, so he wouldn't look like a schmuck like he did with The Graduate.
And wound up looking like a schmuck.
Ended up looking like a schmuck again because of various other scenarios that happen in hijinks on the campus. But
oh my God. Well, awesome. So how do we get this into your story? Obviously, you work for National Lampoon. That's who did Animal House. So it's definitely tied over. And part of your tenure with National Lampoon. Yes, everyone wants to know where your toga is. He is Mardi Gras.
Still gone. Yeah, I'm wearing my Mardi Gras electric blue outfit today in celebration of Mardi Gras. This is my New Orleans outfit, and obviously Eric wearing his toga.
Right. Eric's the lazier wardrobe consistently.
Yeah.
So this works out just perfectly. And yes, R.I.P. PJ O'Rourke. R.I.P. Ivan Reitman.
Reitman too. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's been tough lately.
Yeah.
So what brought you down there, and how did this all happen out of your tenure?
Right. Well, keep in mind, I didn't become an editor there until '85. So this was, 7 years after the release of Animal House. But a lot of the other guys were gone by then, gone to Hollywood, including Doug Kenny, who fell off a cliff in Hawaii, or as Chris Miller said, fell off a cliff while looking for a better spot to jump, according in the tradition of dark gallows humor. But get back to the movie thing. Chris Miller went to Dartmouth, and he added quite a bit of debauchery into that script. And maybe we'll get into it another time, but he had told me certain stories that were excised from the script that were really sick, really sick. But anyway, make a long story short, the phone rang one day in my office, and it was these guys at Loyola in New Orleans, and they were putting on the world's largest toga party, and they wanted us to sponsor it and be part of it. And I said, all right, let's see what we can get together here. And I brought Miller Beer into it as a sponsor, and Hawaiian Tropic, and obviously Lampoon. And I think Maddie was out of town, so the ship had no helm, so we were running amok, which was typical of Lampoon. So we set up some sort of a thing for March 20th of 1987 to go down to Loyola and Tulane combined, and they hired Otis Day and the Knights, the band from Animal House, which was a touring band at that time, and did in the movie, if you notice, you'll see Robert Cray playing guitar, unplugged, obviously, in the movie. But Robert Cray later became one of the most famous blues musicians in the 90s and into the 2000s. Absolutely brilliant player.
And this guy was an actor who lip synced in the movie. That
right. But years later, they became a touring band with his family. Kind of like Sly and the Family Stone, and they were brought down to New Orleans for this event also, and they actually performed. So, for the world's largest toga party, they wanted us to come down and be the hosts and put on some sort of a show, and also be part of the festivities during that weekend or week. I forget. Yeah, here's the flyer, actually. Yeah, Otis Day and the Knights, B movie, rhythm and blues review. Bring a can. Okay, yeah. So just to back up before we get to this place, Ratso and I and Patrick Weathers were the three representatives of Lampoon. So Ratso was the editor-in-chief of Lampoon. There's Ratso in a Chinese restaurant, probably with me and Al Goldstein. We used to go to the Chinatown and have lunch. Ratso had written On the Road with Bob Dylan, the Rolling Thunder Review tour book. He'd written Skating on Thin Ice about the Rangers. He's now written a book on Abby Hoffman. He's written a book on Houdini. He wrote a book on, various rock and roll people. He used to write for Rolling Stone. He was editor of High Times for a while. But Ratso, myself, and another contributor, Patrick Weathers, who used to be on SNL, were the three that went down. So we decided to put on a review before. This is a review the day before. I think we went down on a Friday, so it was Friday and Saturday. And we decided to put on a review called Run GMC, a parody of Run DMC, with Ratso in a wheelchair, and we're dressed like Hasidic Jews, which, of course, I don't know where this idea came from. But Ratso and I don't know what this is here.
It's supposed to be Patrick Weathers.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That might be Patrick.
It is,
Uh,
according to this. Yeah, he's
well,
character actor.
that's an old photo. Anyway, so Ratso and I went to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. We said, where are we going to get these authentic fur hats that the Hasidim have? So Ratso says, let's go to Williamsburg. So we jump in a cab and we go to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, me and Ratso, to buy these expensive, and I mean expensive, Lampoon paid for it, fur hats that the Hasidic Jews wear. And this guy was completely suspect of us. The guy who ran the store, he just knew something was up because we should not have been buying these hats. And they were like $300 a hat or something made out of otter or
Good Lord.
sort of seal or some kind of fur. And the guy says, what do you want the hats for? So Ratza goes, we're doing a play. And he goes, what play? And Ratza goes, Fiddler on the Roof. And the guy goes, all right. And he sells us the hats. We jump back in the cab. We go back to Lampoon. This is weeks before we went down to New Orleans. But anyway, we write this rap, which is kind of a parody. Remember Rapper's Delight, Eric?
Yes.
It was like the first really hip hop rap. I think.
It was the first one that went mainstream.
Right, Rapper's Delight. So we did a ripoff of that called Napper's Delight as two all Jewish guys and Patrick walking around with a ghetto blaster. So it was like Run Jew MC.
Oh,
so dude, it was just ridiculous. It was just absolutely ridiculous. We worked on everything. So plus we had like some video aids before that. We were showing clips from Lemmings. It was a whole show, on Friday in the Commons. And there was about 200 people there. This is the day before the Toga party. So we had a multimedia presentation. And then we did the two live Jews. And when we were done, it was 200 people staring at us with their jaws hanging open. Not one person laughed. Not one person was moving. They were just staring at us in disbelief. I looked at Ratso and I said, let's get out of here. And that was the end of that show. They had no idea what we were doing, Eric. They had no idea. Fur hats, phony payas, black robes with ghetto blasters doing a Yiddish version of Rapper's Delight.
That's pre. Well, no. I was going to say Yankovic did some stuff before that, but I don't know if he did the Hasidim stuff.
Keep in mind, this is in Louisiana. So, this didn't go over so well. Anyway, so we decided to have we had a driver. And we said, take us to the really unusual parts of New Orleans. So he took us to some guy in back of the 7-Eleven who was writing the world's longest novel. And sure enough, there's a guy sitting on milk cartons and he's just typing away on a scroll. And there's thousands and thousands of feet of a novel at his feet. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, working on my novel. Outside in back of 7-Eleven, typing away. I said, okay, that was worth it. Then he takes if a Viking can dress in sheets. Well, I don't know. Did Vikings wear togas or?
I have no idea. Do they even wear clothes?
Anyway, so they took us to, after that, they took us to, I said, take us to, we had the driver, some student. We said, take us to the Howard Stern of New Orleans, whoever the shock jock is. We had no idea who it was. And the guy goes, oh, you mean Jeff Schmengel? I go, yeah, Schmengel, take us to Schmengel. So we go to, KRON, whatever it was in New Orleans, the rock station. And the guy is in a glass booth and he's broadcasting the show. And he was aware that we were coming. There was some sort of message that he got that we were coming on the show live. So we go into the glass booth with this guy and we start promoting the show saying it's going to be the world's largest toga party tomorrow at Loyola, the football field, wherever the hell it was. Bring a can of food for the homeless. And we start promoting this thing. And the guy, he's not really digging it. So we kind of, and I hate to say this, we kind of pushed him out the door and locked the door behind him and started broadcasting our own show. And the guy starts banging on the door, demanding to be let in, but we don't let him in. And it wasn't planned, Eric. This was not planned. We had no idea. He was just a dick. He was just a dick. And we literally kicked him out of his own studio and locked the door. And it was just spontaneous. It really was. So the guy's banging on the door and then he disappears. I don't know where he went. So we start broadcasting. We realize we now have a 50,000 watt station that we're now broadcasting in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And I have no idea who's listening to this or what's going on. We didn't play any music. We were just making jokes and riffing about the show that was coming up, saying it was for charity, whatever. I mean, it was all legit. And then we look up, it's about 20 minutes later, we look up and he's standing there with 6 state troopers with state trooper hats on. And the guy takes a billy club and he taps it on the window. Let's go. And we open up the door. That was the end of the show. Okay. So we leave we didn't get arrested or anything. We leave the show and the guy takes us to see the grave of Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen, at I think it's St. Louis Cemetery number 1. And this is an actual Polaroid that I took. And they said they said before this, if this orange tabby cat ever shows up, that is the reincarnation of Marie Laveau. Now, it's a huge cemetery. The second I get there, I start looking at this thing, and the cat shows up. So I took this photo of the reincarnated voodoo queen, Marie Laveau, at her actual mausoleum in New Orleans at St. Louis Cemetery number 1. So he took us to that thing. That was kind of fun. And then, okay, so then we said, take us to the Delta House, whatever that was, of Tulane, whatever these guys were. And we figured there must be I said, take us to the rowdiest fraternity on campus. That was my line. I didn't know who these guys were. So the guy looks at me in the rearview mirror and he goes, "You don't mean the Deeks, do you?" I go, "Yes, the Deeks."
I can see you chanting almost, Deeks, Deeks, Deeks.
No, we were all going, Deeks. Yes, we went crazy. Take us to the Deeks. So they brought us to this rundown house off campus somewhere. I don't know where it was. And this is it. This is the house they took me to in 1987. These guys were not in the front, but it was in really bad condition. You may see a noose hanging from the porch. I don't know if you could see that. If you could zoom in, there might be a noose there.
That would be this one.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
On another shot.
Yeah.
This
okay.
one, though, this one was just them, and half of them noticed the gentleman here in blackface. Yes, okay. It's a very noteworthy fraternity. You'll go into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, they've been banned. They were banned. They marched in a parade in blackface. They had to have sex with a goat to get into the fraternity. They were nationally banned. They were absolutely the most rowdy fraternity, and one of the oldest, actually. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was a Deek. I mean, it goes all the way back to 1884. But this chapter, this New Orleans chapter of the Deeks, which is Delta Epsilon Kappa, DEK, but they're known as, I guess that's a DKE, Delta
Kappa Epsilon.
Epsilon. Yeah. Okay. But they're known as the Deeks. So I walk into this room and there's a pool table that's cockeyed in a cockeyed room with the floor going the other way, like one of these trick rooms, and there's nobody in there. And I just said, "Where are these mother effing Deeks, you pieces of shit?" And I'm just like, riffing. And out of each doorway comes the most scariest looking frat guy you've ever seen in your life, with torn clothes and a beer or a bottle in their hands. And they just look at me like they're just going to rip me to pieces, Eric. They're going to rip me apart. And I quickly explained who I was, that we were from Lampoon. We wanted to bond with them. And of course, they lifted me up high. We danced, we cheered, we threw up. It took me like 5 seconds to flip them, but they were going to kill me. And they then embraced us. And here's the actual Animal House that's up in Eugene, Oregon. Actually, the comparison is really interesting.
Pretty close, yeah.
Pretty damn close. I mean, and they didn't copy this at all. These guys were far worse than anything you saw in Animal House. I mean, they literally branded you with a brand on your arm.
Yeah, somebody answered for that at Yale, if I understand. Who was that person?
There might have been a Bush who was a Deek, but not here. He was.
It was at Yale. W said no. It was cigarette burns, right?
Cigarette burns, yeah, but it wasn't. They branded them, and then you had to have sex with a goat, and then they marched in the parade in blackface, which. Look, today, I mean, Trudeau would be not even considered a Deek up in Canada. I mean, he does this in any parade up in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, he lost count. Maybe he did in their parade. He doesn't know how many times.
He doesn't remember, probably. He doesn't remember. Anyway, so we bond with the Deeks. We tell them about the Toga party. They're psyched. The Toga party is the next day, and it's at Loyola on this football field, and everybody came. The Guinness Book of World Records show up or up on a stage. I remember everybody doing the worm in the dirt And I want to say it was like 40,000 or 30,000 people. I don't really remember how many people it was. It was a lot of people. And the big mistake we made was telling them to bring a can of food for the homeless, because then they started chucking the cans and knocking each other out unconscious from hitting each other in the head with the cans. That was wrong. That was wrong. I admit that now in retrospect. They said that they couldn't get nonprofit status or charity status unless there was a donation of food for the food bank. So we, on the radio, we stupidly said, bring a can of food to the event. And that was not a good idea. It sounded good, but when we saw how many people were knocked unconscious by the flying cans, we thought better of it. So anyway, so during the event, which Otis, Day, and the Knights are playing their blues review of Shout and everything else, they do, the worm thing. And I am on the stage with Otis doing the worm, and I get entangled in his mic cord, wrapped around me and he's going, get off my cord, get off my motherfucking cord. And I'm just oblivious to it. I'm just into the worm, doing it with everyone else in the dirt who's out there in the field, thousands of people doing the worm, So anyway, that event goes off pretty well. I guess nobody got killed. And somehow after the show, we were staying in the penthouse of an old hotel, must have been like 15 or 12 stories next to the Superdome. And we were in an old hotel. It's like a Howard Johnson's or something, but it was like 12 stories. I don't know. And below us in the 11th floor was Otis Day and the Knights and his family. So they would climb up the terrace and into our room to get some more pots and pans. They were cooking down there. They were used to living on the road. So they would just climb over the balcony into our room all the time. Anyway, so I got separated from the group and I ended up lost. And I went into a 7-Eleven somewhere. And in that 7-Eleven was a Sikh with a turban, but he had a Southern accent. You know how a lot of these Sikhs run 7-Elevens?
Sure.
Right. Okay. So, but he was
Iranian. Yeah, Iranians.
Right.
Sikhs,
So he had a sword and he had a turban, but he had a Southern accent, which I found to be hysterically funny. So I said, how do I get back? He didn't know where I was. And these two old black guys were in there and they said, we'll take you back. And I said, oh, thank you. So they take me out in this old beat up Cutlass 88. And there's a kid driving and one of them sits in front, one of them's in the back with me. And I told them the hotel and they said, no problem. And I said, great. And they said, we have to make a stop first, which of course you always have to make a stop first. There's nobody ever takes you directly home or where you're going to go. So we're driving through the woods as things will have it. And it's like really like the outskirts of New Orleans now. We're in like, I don't know, Thibodeau, or we're in the boonies in those jungle trees and dirt and mud. And I'm just going, nah, it's not going to work. But we come upon this sugar shack in the woods and it looks kind of like this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's pitch black out, but there's more trees and maybe that one. Let me see that one. Blow that one up. Can you blow that up? Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit like this one. There was much more bio-ish, like this, like trees and crap. So, okay. So in that house, in that shack was 150 black people dancing to a blues band. There's no electricity. They're playing electric. They're playing acoustic. They're packed in there because this is like Saturday night in the Bayou. I don't know. So they have a bar in there on a plank with two barrels and there's booze. They're dancing to a guy who's a blues band, but they're playing acoustic, no electricity. So I go in there, and for reasons I have no idea, I tell them I'm a talent scout from NBC, and I'm looking for talent. And they don't kill me. They embrace me because I came up with this story. I'm the only white guy in there. There's 150 black people and me. So, but they were extremely friendly, drunk. I'm dancing with them, going crazy. The two old black guys are in there. And for about an hour or two, we're in that shack. And then we leave and I go back to the car with one of the old black guys. And we get into the car. The kid was at the wheel the whole time. I don't know why the kid didn't go in there. And the older black guy said he had to meet somebody in there. So I don't know what the deal was. But we're sitting in the car and the second older black guy comes tearing ass out of that shack, dives through the window of the car and yells to the kid, hit it. Now, a bunch of people come chasing out of that shack for this guy. And I went, I have no idea what happened. but the kid floors it, and we're going through the bayou like this, Eric. The roads are like this, in the woods, whatever that is there. Everybody's hitting their head on the ceiling. There's a crowd chasing us from behind, and I'm going like, how do I get out of this alive? The guy, and at one point, the older guy in the front seat knocked himself out because he hit the ceiling too many times. Okay. He recovers. And I think it was what the guy said, somebody owed him money. He got the money, his sister, I don't know. It was just some mumbo jumbo. But we get back to the hotel where I'm staying, this Howard Johnson's hotel. And in the lobby, the one old black guy chases the other old black guy around with a knife, demanding his take of the money. And they're running around the lobby like this, like a bad sitcom. So I go up in the elevator, and in the room is complete, utter debauchery. So I go back down, and we go to a restaurant. Me and Ratso and Patrick Weathers go to a restaurant.
Oh, before we get a couple super chats.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Right. Oh, wow.
All right.
Wow, very good. Dusty
Very
Storm.
good. And then look at our dear Lisa's back. Thank you
Lisa's
so
back
much,
with 50
Lisa.
clams. Look at the Happy Fat Tuesday. Happy Body Dysmorphic Day, my dear.
And very, very happy. Thank you.
Very happy.
Somebody just joined Locals. Awesome.
Woo-hoo!
Thank you,
Welcome
Lisa.
to Join Locals. Right on, Lisa Galloway. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
She's won an opportunity.
She's won
to
a
see
Chef
stuff.
vacuum cleaner. Anyway, so we go to this restaurant before we get back to the debauchery of the hotel. We go back out. We go to this restaurant, Che Helene's, which everybody said was we had been to Tipitina's. We go to Che Helene's, and Che Helene's is sold out. And there was nothing we could do. But we got Ratso. If you could show that picture of Ratso again. And Patrick Weathers was able to do. Patrick Weathers used to do an incredible impersonation of Dylan. In fact, in one episode of SNL, Patrick Weathers did a Dylan character. There's Ratso. He looks a little like Dylan, and he rode on the road with Bob Dylan. So I mean, he knew Bob. He was named Ratso by Joan Baez, and
you sent me a video where he was mistaken for
Bob
for Dylan in the audience.
Right. No, that was his look. I mean, it was intentional. He loved Bob. Bob was his friend. Bob's still his friend, and he had a look, like Dylan. I mean, that's what we wanted. That's what we loved. So. Anyway, so Ratso, Patrick did an incredible Bob Dylan on SNL with David Carradine one time. David Carradine was playing Woody Guthrie, dying of Huntington's chorea in a hospital bed. And Bob comes in, Patrick Weathers comes in as Bob, and he says, "How's it going, Woody?" And everything Woody Guthrie says becomes a Dylan song, because the rumor was that Dylan got all his stuff from Woody Guthrie. So David Carradine, as Woody Guthrie, says, would you mind closing the window, Bob? It's blowing in the wind. He writes to everything that Carradine says becomes a Dylan lyric. Great sketch on SNL. So Patrick would do an impeccable Dylan, and we show up at Che Helene's with Ratso, and there's no seats, there's no tables. So Patrick says, "You see who we have with us, don't you?" We don't say anything. We're just kidding. We're really just kidding. And they think that Ratso is Dylan. So they take us and they put a table in the kitchen itself and said it's on the house. Everything's on the house. And we're going, "Oh, come on, please don't do that. Please, not for us." So we're in the middle of the kitchen, and the chef is in there cooking. Now that chef is a guy, famously now, he's passed on in 2005, but this is the guy, right? This is Austin Leslie, who was in that kitchen. He's the chef, very famous chef in New Orleans. He becomes the model for a show called Frank's Place, starring Tim Reed. There's Tim Reed, yeah. And there is Austin Leslie. Now, you will remember Tim Reed as maybe Venus Flytrap from WKRP Cincinnati. And this show becomes Frank's Place that year in 1987 on CBS, a sitcom based on Che Helene's. This is the inside. Oh, it's Frank's Place, right? Okay, so they made it look, I don't know, maybe that is Che Helene's, but they called it Che Louisiana or something like that. That's Tim Reed with the other actress in the show. So anyway, so we're sitting in this kitchen. And the guy, the chef, kind of smells a rat. And he's over there chopping up some fish with a giant butcher knife, right? And he's talking to himself. He's just slamming the butcher knife down, chopping up some sort of alligator or some shit. Yeah, here he is. Right. That's the front of Che Helene's. So he's there in the kitchen chopping up this fish, and under his breath to himself, mumbling to himself, he's just going, "That ain't no goddamn Dylan. That ain't no goddamn Dylan." And we're like, "Oh boy." And it's getting louder and louder as the meal is going on, Eric. The guy's getting louder and louder. And finally just turns around with the meat cleaver and goes, "Get the hell out of my goddamn restaurant." And he chases us out with the meat cleaver. And we just ran out the back door of the kitchen, never to be seen again. And I don't know what happened to that guy. Well, he later, became a very famous chef.
Well, he was famous at the time. I mean, they made a show based on him and his restaurant. So,
well, we didn't know. Anyway,
Forrest Buckley here
manages
to run into him.
we didn't know what was going on, but it was later that night. We go back to the hotel and we get back to the room, and somehow the two old black guys are back in there, still chasing each other with a knife, and the whole room is completely leveled. I mean, it's people. There's some nudity, there's drugs, there's vomit, there's, empty bottles, there's broken glass. There's about 60 people in the room, and they had called up for room service because there was nothing left. And there's a knock at the door. I don't know. That wasn't on our door, but that was in town, but
right. Just a feel of it.
Right. These are some photos I took. Let me see these photos. I took these that weekend. This was one of them. Okay, yeah, I took that that weekend in New Orleans. That's me, obviously eating something that was from Louisiana.
Beignet, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
No, sugar.
I think so. This is me somewhere in a bar somewhere. I don't know what's going on there. Obviously dressed appropriately for the weekend. Oh, that's probably where I was. Female amateur wrestling in there somewhere. Anyways, look, when you give me these assignments, Hunley, I have to dig through my storage. This guy's got to go away already with the Scandinavia angle. When you give me these assignments, I can barely remember these stories until I start digging through the National Archives that most people call a garage I have back there. And then I start finding photos. And this is really what happened the other day. I mean, I don't know let me see if you have any other photos there. Maybe I can identify.
No, that was it for your tour, but you also had this guy near your room.
Okay. So just so you know, so there's a knock at the door, and with all this debauchery that's going on in the room, we open the door and there is a completely dressed New Orleans police officer dressed like this at the door, and there's drugs. I mean, Eric, it was not a good scene. And he's carrying a big giant tray filled with beer bottles and drinks, fresh drinks and fresh beer bottles. And everybody takes a collective gasp upon seeing him. I mean, 60 people going, and he looks around the room deadpan and says, I'll never forget this. And he just said, "Relax, y'all. This here's the Big Easy." And he came in and he put down the drinks and he left. And the entire room exhaled collectively. I'll never forget that. I thought we were finished.
You're like, this is the best town ever.
It's the greatest town in the history of America. And I couldn't believe that happened. Anybody could have been moonlighting as a waiter. You know what I mean? Like, here's a guy, and why is he wearing the uniform? The whole thing was completely, dystopian. I didn't know what was going on. And he was the friendliest guy. He didn't stay, he left, but
yeah.
It was just, he could have busted us from here to Shreveport, and we never would have gotten out alive. So he leaves. The debauchery continues, and the next day, I think it was the next day. I don't really remember. The mayor had declared it Otis Day. It was a proclamation, a literal. There were some articles I sent you. I found these articles that were in the paper. Obviously, I was correct because I found these articles in the paper in my archives. So, day and his nights. Yeah, in that article, we could post these on Locals, right?
Eric? Yeah.
Okay. it was a proclamation saying Otis Day Day. So we come downstairs from the hotel to the swimming pool, and there's all these dignitaries there, and there's all this incredible food. I mean, crawfish, jambalaya, everything is laid out in steam tables alongside the pool. People are there. Some dignitaries of New Orleans, Otis Day and the Knights, come down from the hotel, as did we, and we had to get an award. So Otis goes up and he says, thank you, whatever he says. He makes a speech about being on the road 365 days a year or whatever he does. And and he gets a key from the mayor, Mayor Sidney J. Bartholomew. I don't know if you have a picture of Mayor Bartholomew. He's kind of Creole. He was the first African-American mayor of New Orleans, I believe, 1987. There he is on the left. Yeah, there he is. I don't know who these two people are, but that was the mayor of New Orleans, Sidney Bartholomew. So he's there going over these ceremonies, and they bring me up to say a few words, and the few words that I said were the words of Steve Martin from The Jerk, and I went on and on and on saying that Otis had raised me as a white sharecropper's son in his black family. And I had the whole thing memorized. I was completely blind. And Otis is going, that white boy is crazy. I don't even know this guy. And I just went on and thanking Otis for taking me into, and there's like 12 of them there of his family, or 8, whatever he traveled with. There was a huge black contingent of his family. And I said, I live with them. We work on the road together. He doesn't even see color. He's colorblind. And Otis is just cracking up, and the mayor doesn't know what's going on, and he gives me this plaque, the key to the city of New Orleans, and yeah, there it is right there. That's the key to the city of New Orleans from the mayor, Sidney J. Bartholomew, which is signed on the bottom. We'll put this up on Locals. And I went on about the speech. Honorary citizen. Yeah, I don't know if this is still worth anything, but
it's worth something to you.
It is to me. Be it known that the mayor of New Orleans has conferred the title of honorary citizen upon me, and that's him. And you get that little certificate. And I think there's a key attached to the bottom.
Yeah, it looks like a little tiny key here because it's sticking out of they're hanging off of that label.
Anyway, so luckily, I don't know when The Jerk came out, but it was fodder for me to be raised by that family. And what can you say? You got the key to the city, and it was just a great weekend. We went back upstairs to the hotel and continued the debauchery, and we still had the fur hats, and the toga party went well. Nobody got killed. The Guinness Book of World Records was there. I didn't even see the guy, but somehow it ended up in the paper. Whatever the number was, that record stood for many, many years. But as Joe DiMaggio said, records are made to be broken, and I think since then it's been broken, right?
Yeah, I think Australia and New Zealand have started to go back and forth on the record.
Oh, real? Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that sounds like good toga territory. We then hooked up with the Deeks. I won't go into that. That was X-rated Deek material. I can't even talk about that. I haven't thought about this story in a long time.
You and I'll be talking later on the phone call.
Right, you're killing me. Something with Girls Gone Wild with beads. I'm not really sure what happened there. Videos, or maybe it was before videos even. Were video cameras around in '87?
Yes, the very large VHS.
That big one, wasn't that big one around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rare. More common, like 16 millimeter.
Right.
Kind of an overlap in there.
Right. So anyway,
no. Wait. No, they were around because I used to rent movies in the 80s.
Right. That's
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was still in the middle of the VHS beta war.
You know what? I just thought of that. You're right. There was beta and there was VHS, and that hadn't been decided yet.
Yep.
But they used to have a thing called video stores. Remember?
I do.
Okay.
Everybody watch The Last Blockbuster on Netflix. You'll understand.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. So anyway, Animal House becomes like a genre thing, because Porky's and Revenge of the Nerd, all of those are
Revenge of the Nerds in Tucson, Arizona, at U of A, where I am.
Right. All of those became spinoffs, but this was a real life thing here. So, whatever happened that weekend, like they say, whatever happened in Vegas stays in Vegas. But, we went back to New Orleans a couple of other times besides this weekend. We were flown back by people who wanted to party with us, so we went back a couple other times. But the fact that this was organized and actually functioned as a toga party with the homeless people getting the cans, it's a tribute to Loyola and the people who put it on. It wasn't me. It wasn't our group. I mean, we were just there to represent Lampoon and be the hosts of the whole thing and be the front for it. But to their credit, Loyola put on a good show and somehow hooked with Tulane. But I think it was mostly Loyola that put it on. And I don't remember. I tried to find out where it was. It was like an old football field.
I think Tulane is the more respectable school.
Which one?
I think Tulane is the.
Oh yeah, well, we'll get into
school.
Tulane when we get to Oswald, because Oswald infiltrated Tulane and took acid at a party at Tulane. We're going to get into that. We're going to come back to New Orleans a lot, which is why I thought it was fun to do this episode about New Orleans, because when we get into back into the different characters of the assassination,
Jim Garrison and
right, we're going to get deep into New Orleans, so you'll understand where we are in terms of Tulane and how they fit into this thing. Oswald took LSD twice. He took it in Japan at the naval base in Japan to see if he could withstand.
I forgot that Breitbart went to Tulane.
Right, a lot of interesting people went to Tulane. But anyway, so Tulane had the Deeks. I don't know what Loyola had, but we will learn more about how New Orleans was kind of like the Casablanca of the early 60s and late 50s. I mean, it was spy central, running around with Cubans. There was Oswald was involved in making believe he was on both sides of the equation in terms of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, infiltrating student activities that were actually pro-Cuban, which was part of his job for a while, passing out leaflets. And then, of course, the whole arming of the Bay of Pigs invaders came through New Orleans, trained by various, people who were like, David Ferry and others in New Orleans before they launched that.
Oh, the mob was down there too, big time.
Who?
This mob. The mob
Carlos Marcello around the city, and then we got Garrison, and we've touched on this a little bit, but this was my first experience with actually going to New Orleans in 87. I had never been there before. And, when you drive through and you get a drink in your hands at a drive-through, from a McDonald's,
amazing city,
a mixed drink. This is an amazing city. I don't really know who started it or how it became what it is, but man, oh man, is that a wide open city, or
it's also old. One thing you feel there is the age. The city is hundreds of years old because the French were there.
Yeah.
And then they have an eclectic style because that's where I honeymooned. I've been there before. Like no furniture matches in New Orleans. Right. Everything is put together with this like tapestry feel where you have every different color of furniture and everything thrown in, but it all sort of works. It's just this cool.
Dude, take a look at Angel Heart. If you remember that movie with Lisa
great
Bonet
movie.
And Robert De Niro. I mean, that's kind of like New Orleans. You know what I mean? That
sure,
scary. And in a way, it's like Montreal, all the way in the other end of the continent, with the French influence and stuff like that.
Sneaky French
snuck in there, and they have the
Cajun is Acadian. It's shortened from that, so they came from up there anyway.
Well, the music is unbelievable, and these clubs are unbelievable. They're Tipitinas and some of the other clubs that we went to. Obviously Patrick performed somewhere as Elvis. He did it on Broadway, but we would go into a club and Patrick would go up on stage and do this Elvis thing, and then he would do, which is, I think I found a video of it I sent you, where he does Dylan and Johnny Cash alternating, and he would, I don't know how he did it, but he did it for years on stage, and just an amazing talent. He still lives, he's from Tupelo and he lives in New Orleans now. As does John Goodman and many other people that I used to know or do know or who are still down there. Yeah, a lot of people, they don't care about the water levels. They like living in New Orleans, Katrina or no Katrina. They like that city.
Yeah, no, New Orleans is an awesome city. I haven't been there. I was there before Katrina, but I've not been there since.
Been there since. Right, I have not been back. But
I'd love to sometime.
That being said, it's also the most dangerous city in America. I'll tell you this: I had a friend named Noodles who was a woman who was a bioengineer. She was working at some lab down there, and she was sitting at an outdoor table, and a young black kid snatched her pocketbook and rode off on a bicycle. And the guy at the other table got up, jumped in his car to pursue the kid who stole the bag. And the kid got to a red light on his bicycle, and the cop, he was an undercover cop, he was off duty, he's in the car, and the kid pulls out a revolver and shoots through the guy's open window, missing his head by an inch. The cop pulls out his gun, shoots the kid dead, picks up the pocketbook, comes back to the restaurant and gives it back to Noodles and goes, "Here you go, ma'am. Sorry."
I can't help myself, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know that the lead guy in Offspring, Dexter Holland, is known as Noodles, and he is a PhD with a microbiology.
Okay, this was a girl named Noodles.
I know, but I'm just saying that's a crazy freaking coincidence.
Okay,
to both of them have that
right.
same.
I mean,
same
that was a number of years ago, but I mean, the city is so dangerous. I mean, the cops were so corrupt. They had gone into a Chinese restaurant. I remember the story from 15 years ago. They'd gone into a Chinese restaurant, shot and killed the owner, robbed the place, locked them up in the back. When the cops came, they said, "Can you identify the people who did it?" And they said, "Yeah, it was you." It was the same people in police uniform. They identified the cops who did it, and I think they went to the electric chair. The two cops who killed the owner and then came back as cops to deal with the crime and said, "Yes, we can identify them. It was you." Very famous case in New Orleans of the police actually robbing people at gunpoint. I mean, it's as Lenny Bruce said about Chicago, New Orleans is really so corrupt. It's thrilling.
Well, I mean, New Orleans is tied to Chicago. It goes up to Mississippi.
Right.
It's really fascinating, and it follows the same trail as music. I mean, jazz was pretty much invented in New Orleans, or first propagated through there. Blues came out of that. It's really just an amazing tapestry down there. I mean, it really is.
Right. I mean, the music itself, I mean, playing in bordellos. If you see some of these old pictures, you see streets lined with bordellos, like not one, but like 30 in a row with madams and the guys playing piano in these bordellos were called Crazy Ottos. The piano player was just crazy, and they were called Crazy Otto. That was a nickname that they gave to piano players who played in bordellos. And one of the most famous one was Professor Longhair, who was a New Orleans legend as a New Orleans jazz piano player. He came out of a bordello too.
Well, I mean,
there's a lot of stuff down there. There's a lot of history, and I don't know. We'll try to get into more of it as we get into Oswald being down in New Orleans, because he's from New Orleans. He knows that city inside and out. He's raised by the Muret family. Muret family is tied to the Marcello crime boss thing, but everybody is. It's not like he's reporting to Marcello. Marcello ran the city. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And his uncle was a boxer, and his mother's sister was a Muret. And Lillian was an intelligence operative, his first cousin. And she ends up in Minsk or Moscow, meets him in Moscow at one point by accident. It's kind of funny that his first cousin from New Orleans runs into him
miraculously.
And he says,
but remember, everybody spoke Russian.
Everybody spoke Russian. I mean, even Mrs. Obama, the mom spoke Russian. I guess you had to back then just to get by. But Oswald loved a show called I Led 3 Lives, and it was a TV show he was addicted to as a kid, about a guy, an FBI agent who infiltrates the Communist Party, and became a very famous book called I Led 3 Lives, which became a very famous TV show called I Led 3 Lives. And Oswald, even as a 10-year-old, loved the show, loved the book, and he said, "That's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to infiltrate communist organizations." And his brother talked about that after he was dead. His brother talked about Robert Oswald, how his brother was addicted to this show and always wanted to be an intelligence operative.
Well, this, folks, is what you call a tease. So we have a lot coming up with
Oswald. This will be Oswald tease in New Orleans, because there's so much stuff. And obviously, David Ferry lives in New Orleans, and, there's all kinds of skullduggery. And when you think of skullduggery, I think of New Orleans, because I don't even know what skullduggery means.
Well, think about one more element of New Orleans, and we'll move off of it. But literally, was it John Lafitte? I think I forgot the pirate's name. I think it's John Lafitte, or Lafayette, I can't remember, but we were tied in with a pirate. I mean, a pirate actually helped Andrew Jackson when it came to the Battle of New Orleans.
Okay.
So it goes, I mean, it goes all the way back. So it's always been this kind of crazy blend.
Right.
And it also wasn't the French, it was the
You got
Spanish were there.
Right.
Like jambalaya is really jambalaya, and that's off of a Spanish influence tying in.
Well, I'll tell you something. That cemetery, which is a lot of them, they're all above ground because of the water
Lafayette.
level.
Thank you.
Lafayette, Michael. Those above ground mausoleums are really creepy. There's all kinds of people.
But they have to do that because
in
Katrina they had a problem because the bodies were all floating.
The bodies were floating up and saying, "Oh, there goes Grandma." What? I thought we buried her Tuesday. There she goes.
It was like National Lampoon floating by. Vacation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of that was written by John Hughes, by the way, who was before me. But John Hughes wrote one of my favorite of all time, which is called My Vagina. And this is a preppy high school kid with his friends, and they would go out in town and hang moons on Friday night, drink beers, stick their asses out the window of cars, just local small town hijinks. And the kid wakes up one morning and he's got a vagina, and he doesn't know what to do, what to make of it. And it's a great short story, let me put it that way. And that's the type of stuff we had in Lampoon. And the like I said, the Chris Miller thing, I'll just tell you what happened. Chris Miller was listening to the radio in his fraternity at Dartmouth, and the police were in a high-speed pursuit of somebody in a car, and they were listening to it while they were drinking in their fraternity. And the guy in the car crashed into a tree and killed himself while the police were pursuing it. And on the radio, like they have on TV now, they had coverage of the pursuit, but on the radio, not on TV. So it turns out the tree is about an eighth of a mile from the dorm, from where they are partying. So Chris Miller, with his beer mug in his hand, says, "Let me go out and see what's going on here." So he staggers out to the site of the incident, and there's the car crashed into the tree, and the guy, his brains are smashed in, his skull is smashed in, and they're all over the tree, the guy's brains. So Chris Miller takes his beer mug, scoops up some of the guy's brains, and goes back to the dorm and shows the guys in the dormitory what he scooped up.
That's highly disturbing.
Right. Okay. So Matty, in his infinite wisdom, Matty Simmons, the owner of Lampoon, thought it was also disgusting and took it out of the script for animals.
Obvious reasons.
Right. But that's the type of stuff that was taken out, just so you know.
Oh, my God. Well, then, on that happy note.
Well, we'll be back. Obviously, this is not the end of the story. We're going to have other things to do. If you like this story, you can follow me at Lord Buckley.
Yeah, what's coming up Friday?
Well, you can PayPal me to find out, because I ain't talking. Unless they PayPal me and I go, you got to PayPal me for me to go.
You can also join locals. You can find
out. You can join locals too, right? On Friday, we're doing the coffee shop thing, or no?
I think so. Remember, we're going to be trying to do Fun Fridays.
Fun Friday.
Yeah. Because of the day, but I think the coffee shop's
okay. Like I said, if you like the custom shop story, which apparently a lot of people did, I was quite surprised by the sheer volume of people who like that story. You're going to love the custom shop, the coffee shop story, which is Shelley's Coffee Shop on 42nd Street, where I worked as a kid when I was going to college, and the colorful characters that came into that place, and also the secrets involved of 42nd Street. And I was just watching a movie last night called Hustling with Lee Remick and Jill Clayburgh. And that movie figures into the story I'm going to tell Friday, because they were shooting that movie while I was in the restaurant. And not unlike the custom shop where they were shooting Falling in Love, they were shooting this movie when I was in the Shelley's Coffee Shop. And Friday, we're going to go over that story, plus the secret language of coffee shops, plus the story of the waitress Mary and my Uncle Louie, who ran the place, and some of the incredible, colorful characters like the midgets who lived in the Holland Hotel, and John, the construction worker who had narcolepsy, and other colorful characters. Congo, the witch doctor I told you about, right, Eric, who speaks absolute perfect Yiddish. He looked like he was right out of Africa, really dark old man. He was about 80. and he was from vaudeville. A guy named Congo the Witch Doctor was able to throw his voice. That was his superpower, besides speaking Yiddish.
Don't spoil it.
What?
Stop spoiling the show.
Oh, okay. All right. I won't. It's too
Come on.
much. I'm sorry, Eric. I'm sorry. Thank you for stopping.
And by the way,
we're done, Tony.
unless there's something that
Tony,
if
we're
there's
so
news-
over this with this Mutt Baldwin. Can we please move on? Get a life.
if
Get a
there's
life.
news, if there's news,
If
you
he
know,
kills
we'll do it.
himself, we'll break into the middle of the show. How about that? Or if he's arrested at gunpoint, we'll put out a special edition. But H.A. Goodman even gave up. I think he's covering the Durham case, right?
I don't know. For some reason, I'm not following Goodman outside of the Baldwin.
Right. Well, I'm saying even he's not broadcasting Baldwin.
I don't think so. I really, there's nothing much there. I've got a couple lines out, but if nothing comes in, I mean, what are we going to do? Just cover something we've already covered? It's not. It's not fun.
It's not fun. Anyway, so yeah, at Lord Buckley or Eric, how do you subscribe, Eric? Tell me how.
There's a button down below,
Right.
and you can press it, and there's a bell,
Right.
and you set it to always because then you hopefully get an alert. Now,
Right.
Unfortunately,
I
nothing
like this
can be
jacket.
counted
by the
on.
way. I just got this jacket. I'm kind of.
That's very sharp, man.
I know,
Very sharp.
it's a velvet tuxedo jacket. It's got a sheen.
And people are complaining it's not a toga. Jeez, I don't know what to tell.
No, I don't care about that. I mean, I'll wear a toga on Friday if you want to wear a toga. I wear a toga all the time. It doesn't matter to me. This is special for Eric. I wear them once or twice a month. But
Yeah, it's like a
at
date.
Lord Buckley, PayPal me. The book is down below. You can subscribe, which we strongly urge. An unlived life is not worth. Mark's life is a major in college. Another Henley. Look, 1277 for Henley's
Thank
up on the big board. We got Henley up on the board.
Well, look at the
How
cute
do they come
doggy.
up with these numbers? 1277. Do they mean anything?
I'm not sure on that. That's
December
cute doggy.
1977. Is that something? Maybe there's some coded messages in these numbers that we don't know about.
Could
Oh,
be.
that's the dog. That's the little white
Yeah,
dog.
that's a
that I
cute
like.
dog.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, you say that they could subscribe. There's no
There's nobody holding against them. You know what else they can do? They can
What?
comment below and
right.
tell us what they think. I mean, because
Right.
that all helps. And most importantly, share with a friend. Obviously, we'd love to have you join Locals. It's free.
Right.
You can follow us for free on there. A lot of stuff goes up that
Let me
we're
put this
not.
out. I'm going to put
Yeah.
up. This is the actual lyrics for Napper's Delight.
Oh,
This is
perfect.
from 1987, 3 pages long of the entire show. I'm going to put this up on Locals for subscribers and some other documents so people don't believe I did this thing. Sometimes I don't believe it happened. Then I find these documents and I go, oh, I guess I did go to put on the world's largest toga party.
That's too
And
funny.
luckily, I saved these documents so people would believe me later on,
And by the way, I found the skit about Dylan and Guthrie. I'll post that.
You
for
did?
people. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Right. Because he did send it to me a couple of years ago and I put it up on Vimeo or something. Do you have the Lemmings show also? I think I sent you the full show of Lemmings, National Lampoon Lemmings at the Village Gate.
I don't know. I have to look.
I think I might have posted it on there already. I think I posted it
Maybe.
on Locals.
Okay. Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
worth
sort
looking
it out.
at. That's worth looking at, that Lemmings show, because that leads to SNL, that entire show. Lorne Michaels comes and steals everyone from the show. And that becomes Saturday Night Live. And they went to Maddie and they said, we have an idea for a TV show. You're interested? And Maddie, not to be a dick, he already had the albums, he had the movies, he had the stage shows going on and the magazine. And he said, I really, to be honest with you, don't have time to deal with it. And within a year, that became SNL, and they took all his talent and put him on SNL. I mean, Bellucci used to be up in the office, everybody. And I'll tell you just one more story. Bellucci's wife, Judy Bellucci, was an art director at the magazine. And she came to work one day and somebody had taken her desk from her office for their office, one of those things. So Bellucci came up and went berserk yelling, where's Judy's desk? I think it was his girlfriend at the time. And Maddie said, look, I don't know about the desk. What do I care about this stupid desk? And so Bellucci goes crazy, screaming and yelling. And Maddie goes to lunch. And Bellucci got up on his desk, opened the desk drawer, and dropped something from his body into the desk drawer and closed it and left. And when Maddie came back to the office, he had a big shareholders meeting, and this smell was coming out of the top drawer of his desk. And he opened it up, and there was a byproduct of John Bellucci.
So he took a dump in the damn drawer.
Thank you. I didn't want to say that. You're the one. You're the one with the toga. But there's a little known Belushi story.
Oh my God.
When we get into the making of National Lampoon, which we'll do as an episode.
Yes,
I
that'll
could
be a
tell
Friday.
Some of these personal stories from National Lampoon when I was there, and some other things that I've heard, and I'll pass them on to you in case I'm caught or killed behind enemy lines.
All right. On that note, folks, we will see you Friday.
Friday.
And,
that's right.
And on locals.
And on locals. Don't forget on locals. Thank you.